Have you ever wondered what horrors awaited those accused of witchcraft during history's darkest times? In this video, we will unveil the bone-chilling secrets of the most terrifying punishments during the witch hunt. Travel back in time to a spooky period in Europe from 1300 to 1850. During this eerie era, many people, especially women, were accused of witchcraft and faced trials and executions that shook entire nations. Just a simple accusation could bring inquisitors from the Catholic Church, leading to a terrible ordeal for innocent lives. They paid a big price for their powers, facing punishment and being burned alive for many years. It's shocking to learn that about 80,000 to 100,000 lives were changed forever because of this. And guess what? 80% of those accused were women, victims of unfair judgment. But before we talk about that, be sure to hit the subscribe button. Although the Black Legend criticized the Holy Inquisition, calling its members unfair, irrational, and violent, we can't ignore the haunting truth. This malevolence touched every part of Europe. Countless lives were lost. Around 40,000 to 60,000 people were claimed by the church, and additional victims were lynched by their own neighbors and abandoned by the law. One country, Germany, stands out as a chilling example of this dark time. Even before Hitler, Germany had a gruesome reputation. Between the 17th and 18th centuries, Germany's Inquisition was obsessed with hunting witches and caused immense havoc. They were responsible for an astonishing 50% of Europe's victims. It's estimated that 25,000 to 30,000 lives were sacrificed to this madness. A time when innocence was destroyed and darkness ruled. People accused of witchcraft faced terrible punishments like beheading or burning at the stake. In cities like Bamberg, Mainz, Eichstätt, and Würzburg, being accused of witchcraft was a nightmare that led to deep despair. Accusations were fueled by envy, suspicion, hatred, or petty arguments, tearing lives apart. The Holy Roman Empire, once united, fractured due to the growing tensions between Catholic and Reformed groups, turning into a battlefield where the accused were used as pawns. In a chilling letter from 1629, a witness described a horrifying truth. Even promising young students, boys as young as 7, were accused of making deals with the devil and burned alive. The letter mentioned that even children as young as 3 or 4 were said to have danced with the devil, showing how irrational accusations affected the German settlers, poisoning their beliefs in a time of naivety and blind faith. However, amidst the darkness there was a glimmer of hope. Contrary to what many believe, the fury and violence in Germany were somewhat less extreme in other countries. Although no part of Europe escaped this haunting chapter, people in those countries had better control over their anger and desire for justice, preventing the storm from consuming everything. Within Spain, a Holy Inquisition arose, bound by strict regulations that mandated the investigation of accusations while discarding confessions obtained through torture. Remarkably, it achieved a comparably low execution rate, with only 3,000 lives lost over the centuries. This divergence stems from the Spanish Inquisition's focus on attracting new believers and religious conversion, rather than the relentless torture and execution of heretics and witches. Nevertheless, episodes of persecution mar its history, as seen in the infamous case of Zagarramurdi's witches. In this Navarre town, a notorious trial unfolded in 1609, resulting in the condemnation of 30 individuals in an auto da fe. Of these, 11 were executed while the remaining prisoners perished before reaching the stake, leaving 6 to face the horrific fate of being burned alive. It is crucial to recognize that the procedures and contexts of these trials varied across countries, not always falling under the jurisdiction of the Holy Inquisition or adhering strictly to legal formalities. Even children in Switzerland were accused, but their imprisonment was stopped only by intervention from Rome's inquisitors. In countries consumed by hysteria and violence, those accused of being witches went through terrifying experiences. Suspected witches were captured based on rumors or forced confessions extracted through torture from other accused witches. These tortured individuals, desperate to end their suffering, would provide random names to their tormentors. The prisoners were locked up in dungeons and towers known as witches' towers, where they endured mistreatment. Any captive could face these horrors. Once everything was ready, the accused were taken to the place of interrogation and possible torture. The interrogator followed a 3-step process to extract confessions. First, they would ask questions peacefully, hoping for voluntary admission. If that didn't work, they would show the prisoners torture devices like thumbscrews, the wheel, the rack, and the Spanish boot to intimidate them. Finally, if necessary, they would use those painful methods. Shockingly, the rules governing torture were often ignored by witches, with prolonged and repeated torment beyond what was allowed. Logic didn't matter anymore, and ridiculous tests and punishments were used. For example, they would do a water test where if you sank, you were innocent, but many innocent people drowned. There was also a fire test where they believed that God would protect the guilty from getting burned while walking on hot iron. And the weight test was just silly, where weighing less than a cat meant you were guilty. Confessions were obtained through torture, even if they weren't true, and these confessions were the main basis for convictions. The accused were forced to name others, making the number of suspects grow. Once everything was in place, a death sentence was given, and they had to be executed within a certain time. Burning at the stake was common, sometimes after decapitation or strangulation. The punishments and tortures inflicted on witches were horrifying, getting worse and worse. These cruel devices were made specifically for accused witches, aiming to make them confess, humiliate them, and make their suffering longer. At that time, texts promoting hatred towards women spread the idea that they were easily tricked by the devil because they were seen as physically, spiritually, and morally weak. That's why they faced even harsher treatment. Laws held no sway in their trials, as Inquisitor Henry Instatoris wrote in Malleus Maleficarum, "All works of witches, even those seemingly good, must be deemed evil." Actions mattered little. Identity was paramount. Punishments aimed to inflict pain on women, fueled by superstitious beliefs surrounding their nature. Tests were concluded, allowing a higher power to determine guilt or innocence. The infamous water test prevailed, assuming witches lacking souls would float, condemning them to death by drowning. Torture surpassed comprehension and focused on inducing excruciating agony rather than eliciting confessions. One example was El Desgarrador, brutally tearing mammary glands from the body, leaving victims scarred for life and unable to nurse future children. And then the stake, a well-known sentence for those accused of devilish pacts. As ordained by the Catholic Church, it delivered the ultimate punishment for heresy. Many succumbed to smoke inhalation before the flames consumed them, while individual executions meant enduring the searing burn of the inferno. In a county plagued by sporadic witchcraft trials, the Salem witch trials stood out, captivating hearts across the ocean. Why do we still recall this chilling chapter? The answer lies in its profound impact on authors like Arthur Miller, whose masterpiece, The Witches of Salem, echoed its haunting legacy. Today, we don witches' costumes for fun, but back then, a mere accusation sealed your fate. The mischievous spirits of a few girls, fueled by mass hysteria in a deeply Puritan society, sparked a catastrophic chain reaction. In late 1691, Reverend Samuel Parris and his family arrived in Salem, accompanied by a slave named Tituba. As Tituba's enchanting tales and voodoo rituals took hold, young Betty Parris and Abigail Williams shattered the bounds of puritanical morality. Their bizarre behavior, public convulsions, nonsensical words, and bestial behaviors alarmed Ann Putnam, scion of a prominent family. Religious zealots and superstitious townsfolk were on high alert, recounting tales of the girls' satanic dances in the eerie forest. To evade the hangman's noose, the girls pointed accusing fingers at Tituba, blaming her for initiating them into dark rites. To escape horrific torture, Tituba weaved a tale of confessions. "I've witnessed the devil in the forest. He morphs into a towering man, a black-haired dog, or a pig. I've seen a yellow bird peck the finger of a fellow witch. Betty, Abigail, Ann Putnam, Sarah Osborne, Sarah Good, they serve Satan." Other neighbors' names filled the book of evil, and then chaos ensued. First came the executions of Sarah Osborne, an embittered neighbor, and impoverished Sarah Good. Accusations multiplied, imprisonments mounted, and revenge-driven neighbors used baseless claims to settle scores, from bewitched oxen to multiple marriages. By late 1693, over 150 arrests were made. 19 received death sentences, 14 women and 5 men, and one was crushed during a brutal interrogation. Contrary to popular belief, the Salem witches met their demise with a noose around their necks. While Europe burned witches at the stake, England and its colonies hanged them like any other capital crime. This terrifying display of violence and ignorance stands as a stark warning, a testament to how extreme beliefs can breed irrationality. Even today, unjust persecution based on absurd notions persist. Who knows what tomorrow holds? In reflecting upon the chilling tales of witch trials and the atrocities committed in the name of fear and superstition, we are reminded of the darkness that can consume humanity when ignorance and fanaticism prevail. The stories of those accused, tortured, and executed serve as a haunting reminder of the importance of reason, justice, and compassion. With that said, thank you for watching. Stay tuned for more, and if you found this content helpful, give the video a like. See you in the next video. Till then, take care.